Hello and welcome to ET Inside, where we get you a 360-degree view of the big picture in business and economy. I'm Sridhar Ramakrishnan, and here's what we have for you on the show today. India Inc.'s best-kept secrets are out in the open and lobbyists are running for cover. But they can't be written off just yet. We'll tell you why. The rules of the game remain the same, but agents have reinvented themselves, and how. Take a look at the new face of lobbying. And find out why India should seriously consider formalizing advocacy. Our top story first. Earlier this week, former Telecom Minister A. Raja was arrested by the CBI for his alleged role in the Spectrum scam. That's a classic example of the power the government yields. After all, government policies can make or break businesses, especially in India, where the government still has a say in everything from foreign investment to environmental clearances. Which is why lobbying is a multi-crore industry in the country, and one that can't be wished away. So how pervasive is lobbying, and who all are doing it? Well, you'll be surprised to know the names. Asha Gopalakrishnan gets you the answers.
It's a game that has been played for decades together in India's power corridors, and no interested party can come out of it totally clean. Not the government, not the agents who swiftly slip in and out of these offices, and not even India Inc. Yet everyone's on a denial about the more than apparent existence of lobbying.
I'm not trying to be holier than thou here. I'm not a perfect person. But whoever is guilty, whether he's a politician, a minister, or an industrialist or a bureaucrat, he should be prosecuted.
Well, I don't understand that subject. Therefore, I don't think I can comment on that.
But the truth is that the existence of lobbying cannot be ignored. It exists in other, more mature economies as well.
Lobbying happens in America also. When it's a question of how far you go. And please also remember, for everybody who takes money, there is a person who gives money. And I think the person who gives money is equally wrong than the person who takes money.
What makes it right in the US is the fact that it's official and regulated. According to the Center for Responsive Politics, America's total spending on lobbying touched an all-time high of $3.49 billion in 2009. The top spenders in 2010 are the US Chamber of Commerce, PG&E Corporation, General Electric and FedEx. And the sectors spending the most on lobbying are pharma and health products, electric utilities, insurance, oil and gas, and business associations.
The biggest advantage of engaging government is to create a policy environment or regulation environment that is in the best interest of most stakeholders. Right? I think that's the fundamental purpose of advocacy.
For instance, when US President Barack Obama took on India's outsourcing industry, NASSCOM and various other IT companies hired lobbyists to give outsourcing an image makeover. According to US Senate's Lobbying Disclosure Act database, NASSCOM roped in Baba Griffith & Rogers, or BGR, and the Landey Group for $650,000 in April 2009 to educate senators and the US corporate sector about the economic benefits of outsourcing. Ditto with Wipro. The company appointed seasoned lobbyist Melanie Carter Maguire as Vice President Government Relations in US. And Cognizant appointed another lobbyist, Robert Hoffman, as Vice President Global Public Policy. The Indian government too placed the issue high on the agenda of President Obama's visit to the country. And the result was for everyone to see. Obama was singing a new tune.
When they ask me, well, why are you spending time with India? Aren't they taking our jobs? I want to be able to say, actually, you know what? They just created 50,000 jobs.
But engaging with the Indian government is not easy. There are several levels of decision-making in the administrative setup. Apart from this, there are sectoral regulators like NHAI, TRAI and autonomous regulatory bodies like RBI, SEBI, etc.
We still have
In fact, in a recent public letter, Ratan Tata said that his group was forced to use the services of an external agency because unlike its competitors, the Tata Group did not enjoy captive connections in the corridors of power, hinting at corporate rivalry. Add to that a weak judicial system which is burdened with a massive backlog, and you'll know why even harmless advocacy needs to take a turn into the dark lane. India ranks 87th in Transparency International survey on 178 countries. India's score on a scale of 10 is 3.3, indicating high levels of corruption versus Denmark, New Zealand and Singapore that score 9.3. And according to Hong Kong-based political and economic risk consultancy, India has been classified as the most inefficient bureaucracy among 12 countries in Asia. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 indicates the worst, India scores 9.41, followed by Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam and China. Singapore and Hong Kong emerged as the most efficient bureaucracies. These high levels of corruption make it tough to do business here. And more so in the case of core industries like roads and highways, ports, oil and gas, power and metals and mining, which are capital intensive, have long gestation periods and more importantly deal with limited natural resources.
Mining is one area which is really boiling over, and it is the biggest scam of our country. We are all talking about 2G scam and CWG scam and stuff like that. Nobody's talking about mining scam.
The good news is that the government is coming down heavily on corruption. At a recent party meeting, Congress leader Sonia Gandhi came up with a 5-point agenda for probity in public life. While a systemic cleanup is bad news for lobbyists cutting shady deals, it is not expected to mean the end of advocacy.
It clearly depends on what industries you're in, right? Some industries do require it, and it's the nature of governments everywhere, right? So I definitely say it is required in certain areas.
Essentially, a lobbyist's job is to bridge the gap between the government and stakeholders. But he or she need not necessarily be a company outsider. Many CEOs meet up with ministers to wield influence. For instance, Anil Agarwal is known to have met Sonia Gandhi and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh when he signed the deal to take over Cain India's assets. Even the Ambani brothers did the rounds of Delhi when their gas fight was at its peak. Some companies hire individuals or PR firms to push their cause, and in some cases, industry bodies like FICCI, CII, etc. step in.
When you talk to the government on a policy matter, as long as it is something which the government believes is going to help in competitiveness, it's helping the industry grow, it's going to help the economy grow, I don't think there's any problem at all.
According to a McKinsey survey on 77 Indian companies, 49% respondents said they use the company's CEO as a spokesperson on government issues critical to strategic agenda. 53% said that they work on building strong, trust-based relationships with key government stakeholders. 41% said they provide key government stakeholders with facts and analysis on how government actions affect company or industry. And 46% respondents said they develop and execute a strategy for engaging with all relevant government stakeholders. Which brings us to believe that India Inc. may seem like it wants to run away from lobbying, but it can't really hide from it, at least not in the foreseeable future.
The interesting itself to meet the changing needs of the government and corporate India. That and more is coming up after this short break. Stay with us.